Hi everyone, it's Jackie with Full Moon Loon Designs, and today I'm going to be doing the freeze infuse process. And I'm not going to be able to run the video the entire time because my GoPro, of course, is not charged when I'm getting ready to do something. But what I've got is a candy mold, or could be a soap mold. I went to a cake and candy decorating supply place yesterday and found some cute molds. They work just as well as silicone, or they have in the past. I haven't tried this particular one yet, but we'll see today. And I'm going to mix up with water, and I'm just going to use a little bottled water because our water is a little iffy at times. But anyway, I have some pale amber and some medium amber powder, and I'm actually going to, excuse me, got a little bit of a cold this week. I'm actually going to mix in some aventurine black fine. You could use black fine, you could use opals. I didn't really want it to just be plain opal brown because I'm going to put one or two of these in a little bird's nest I made, which is a fairly solid brown from Vitrograph that I made, and I'll show that later. But anyway, this is the setup. Of course, when working with powders, you need a mask. I should have my actual respirator over here. That one's just a dust mask. I have something to scoop out the powder, and I just have something to mix it up in a cup. And the coffee does not go in the process. The coffee goes in me because, yeah, I need another coffee today. But anyway, I'm going to mix this up, and I'll show you the consistency when I get back. All right, I may have found a way to set up the phone so that it's still while I mix this up. We'll try it and see how it goes. I do have my mask on, so I probably sound even worse right now, but safety first. In my cup so far, and I didn't precisely measure, but I took about 6 scoops of the pale amber, 4 scoops of the medium amber, and just about a scoop of black aventurine fine. The only fine for it is just the black. It's just for a little bit of accent in the pine cones. But the rest is just powders, and they are transparent, but I think as they fuse they're going to look okay as these pine cones. So just about put my water away. If you've not done freeze infuse before, maybe you've done slurry techniques, or if not at all, you know, you're going to add water, and you can add too much, but it will how do I want to say that? The frit will settle. So like right now, I know I've got too much in here. I'm mixing it up very well, but it's way too watery. And what I do is I'll have another container nearby that as I've mixed it up, I let it sit for about a minute, and you'll see kind of the just water start floating to the top, and I think you can see it pretty well in the video here. I'll pour that off, and then I'll have more of a pasty slurry. So I'm going to pause the camera and go get a cup to pour that off into, because of course I started not quite prepared. All right, I did remove my mask because really there's no powder left here. It is in a liquid state. I forgot to tell you about the other magic ingredient here. Toilet paper. I find that toilet paper helps soak up the moisture once you pour it into the mold cavities. So now, as you see, that water has risen to the top. I'm going to pour it off, and I may need to add some back in, but we'll see. And just as I start seeing the powder get to the bottom now, I've got what looks like a nice slurry paste. And no, I did not mix enough for all of the cavities. I'm just going to maybe do 3 or 4, and I don't even think I really have enough for that quite yet. So might be mixing up some more. I'm going to put my mold here. Again, I'm going to give it a good mix before I start putting it into the cavities. It really should just be that slurry type, like a wet cement kind of texture. So I'm going to put it in there. It doesn't have to be totally full. Yeah, I'm only going to get probably a couple out of this mixture. So I'll mix more up off camera and come back. And then we'll fill up. I think I might do 4 total, because sometimes 1 or 2 might have bubbles or something doesn't come out. But once I get it all mixed up, fill the other 2, I'll show you the rest of the process. All right, so I have mixed up more of my slurry mixture. I have a feeling I'm going to end up with more than 2 this time. And I poured off what was in this cup other than the little chunk of powder that settled to the bottom because it just didn't pour out. Hopefully move this back in the camera range here. That one's probably a little too full. I like to kind of tap pieces of the frit mixture down in there. I should say powder mixture, but it is frit. You know what? Let's end up with what appears to be 6 pine cones. Again, didn't super precisely measure. If I had to guess, I'd say that each scoop was maybe a half teaspoon, not quite a teaspoon. Okay, that's very full. And I still have a little bit left over. And you know what? I can let it sit in the cup. I can let the water evaporate off and just use it in a future project. There's no need to throw it out. It's just powder and water. The water will evaporate, and what do you have? You have powder. So now that I have my mold filled, and you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of water off before I even start tapping the sides of the mold. There you can see I've laid the toilet paper on. I'll show you more of that in a bit. What I like to do is just kind of tap mold. Probably shaking the camera with the phone, hopefully I don't knock it over. This helps get air bubbles kind of to the surface. If you have a lot of bubbles in your freeze infuse, you're going to end up with maybe like some little craters in it once it fires, which might work depending on what you're doing. These are pine cones, so they don't have to be perfect. In fact, you know, a little bit of misshape here and there is probably welcomed because it'll look more natural. But once I've tapped those a few times to get bubbles, now you see there's still a lot of liquid on the surface, and I have found that toilet paper works best. And I think my friend Zoe at Glass Endeavors, I believe we did this when we were working with powders. I think it was with Crackle. Some technique we were doing, and I remember we used toilet paper and not paper towel. I just think it works a little better. And I'll go through this a couple of times. Here, my favorite sound is a kiln clicking away in the background. I have a bowl blank in there for something I'm working on. I'd show you, but the temp's too low / too high to open. It just finished annealing and it's on its way down. Or actually, I think it's still holding at the annealing point. All right, so far I can see that one of these is just a little bit thinner. So just to make it even with the others, I think I'll use up some of this that I had left over. May need to add a little water to it, just because I'm kind of adding it on top of a mixture that's already started to solidify. So this could possibly crumble apart when I take it out after freezing. Probably not. Probably be okay. You know, I can kind of just tap that into there again. Again, not going to waste what's left. Most of these are maybe about an 1/8 inch down from the top. Of course, now that one's very full, and I have one more on the back corner that's quite full. It's going to be fine. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pause the camera. Once I have the moisture all off of these, they are going to go into the freezer. And I usually like to put a piece of cardboard or a small sheet of glass under my tray or my mold, especially the silicone ones because they're soft. This one I could probably carry up to the freezer fine. But what I'm going to do, and I'll show you the texture here once these are done, is throw it into the freezer. I like to go, it kind of varies with the size mold on the project, but I'll probably put these in the freezer for about a half hour to 45 minutes. I think the last ones I did, the little eggs that went into the nest, I believe I did those for 45. So once you got them to a nice, almost looks like sand consistency, or you know, your powder again, obviously, but not super dry because they can get too dried out. This is where I'm going to take this now and put it in the freezer. So when I come back, it will be as I'm popping them out of the molds, or out of the mold. And one thing I will add is before you do that step, while they're freezing, get your kiln shelf ready. You can use a shelf painted with a shelf primer, but I like to use just thin fire or papyrus. I have scraps of both, and I'll just put some scraps down onto my shelf, and I want to have that ready because you have very little working time from when you take them out of the freezer to when they start to crumble if you touch them. So we'll just want to pop them right onto that kiln shelf, and they can go right into the kiln. I've tried being cautious and letting them dry first, and I've tried them just directly from the freezer to the kiln, and both work fine. Mine are going to sit because I won't have a kiln available now until late tonight or tomorrow, because one of mine are down. But yeah, about 45 minutes, I'll come back and we'll look at these when they pop out of the mold. All right, the pine cones are out of the freezer now, and I'm going to pop these out of the mold onto, I've got some scraps of paper on my kiln shelf. I believe this is papyrus. You could use thin fire as well, and again, you could use just kiln wash on your shelf. Oh, see, they're already just popping right out. Again, once they're frozen, when you're popping them out, you got very little time to handle them. Looks like I only really need one piece of paper, maybe even just the small one here. Yeah, we'll play it safe. I'll cut this paper back. But anyway, there are my pine cones. Again, I won't be able to fire them until tomorrow, so I'll pick up this video once they've been fused, and I'll also share the fusing schedule that I use for freeze and fuse at the end of the video. But that's all there was to it. It was mixing up more or less a slurry paste of powder, and again, I had a little bit of fine frit in there for the black accent. You can't really see it quite yet. I'll pick this up and show a better view. But these are going to fuse to in my kiln, and you'll have to test some. I want to keep details, so I'm not going to go super hot. Probably go to around 1260, I believe, but I'll check my notes from last time, and again, I'll share the schedule at the end. But it does take a little bit of testing. First few times I did freeze and fuse, I was going too hot and losing a lot of my detail, but I've kind of gotten it down now. I've done a few of them, and I'll share that again. So when I come back, they'll be fused, and we'll continue from there. All right, the pine cones, the freeze and fuse pine cones are out of the kiln. I did a really simple schedule, and I'll post it at the end here, but I went 500 degrees an hour up to 1260, and I held it for 10 minutes. And then I went as fast as possible to 950, and I held for an hour. If I were just doing something thinner like these leaves, I probably would have only held for 30 or even just shut off. The leaves here, by the way, these are not freeze and fuse. These are the metal molds from the glass house in Decatur, and I made these by sifting powders over them after coating them with the zip. So you can see here how thin they are. I'm going to be using these for another project. Well, actually the same project, the bird's nest that I'm working on. I'm going to do a little bit of slumping with these later. But here are the pine cones. And if I hold it up to the light, I mean, there's really not a lot of light going through there. So even though I used a transparent powder, because of the density, I think, and just the temperature, they do look pretty much brown, but I'm happy with them. They look like pine cones. And that is the quick video tutorial on doing freeze and fuse. Perhaps I'll do one on actually making these leaves here as well, or maybe I'll just include some still shots or put together a short slide deck with the still shots on the setup of those and how they look. But I put these all in together and just fired them, that simple schedule. Yeah, oh, I did add a cool down segment again, just because these are a little bit thicker. but I think they're gonna be just fine. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you have questions, either put them in the comments or contact me through my Facebook page, which is Full Moon Loom Designs. Thanks. Hi, I thought I would share some different molds that I have used or will use. A lot of them I haven't used yet. Some I have. This one I just used last weekend to make little robin's eggs, and I'll share a picture of that in with the video or the still shots. I've used thicker, taller molds, like, you know, everyone loves the poop emoji apparently. I thought I would make unicorn poop, and I just stacked my colors in there. This one's a little dusty, it's been sitting out. Here's one, I don't have the mold up here. Here's an example. It is a cupcake mold, but I definitely did not fill that all the way. But this piece was made using that. So you can see that there is a little bit of shrinkage. Again, that one was probably maybe a third of the way full. Another example to show shrinkage and what happens after they fuse is the peeps. So if I flip it over, you get a better idea. These I probably had about maybe halfway up, not super thick. The eggs I did fill most of the way, and they do turn out really cute as well. I just don't have any examples already fused. Hearts I've used and made a few of those. The roses here. Haven't tried this one yet, but I'm interested to see how the buttons come out. Here's some more of the plastic ones, a little 420 design there. Some frogs, they'll probably be fairly small. Again, you gotta think about thickness, and you gotta think about how much they'll shrink. I wouldn't use the stick part of the lollipops, but the leaves here could be really fun to make. Here's one that is a fondant mold from, you'll find them in the cake decorating section. So again, the only limit is your imagination and what you want to play with as far as your powders. Most of the time I just use powder and water. But as you saw in the pine cones, and also I'll show you the picture of the robin's eggs, I did add a little bit of frit. Here's another one I haven't used yet. It's a thicker mold, so I wouldn't fill it all the way. But you could definitely add like your colors for your eyes and so forth. I'm not great with layering different colors and getting them in the specific places I want. So sometimes I'll just fuse something and then paint it later. With something that doesn't have to go back into the kiln. But anyway, I just thought I would take a quick video and show you some of the possibilities. Oh, here's one more. I thought this one was kind of neat. And you could use like a border piece, these little hydrangea petals. All I did was drop a little bit of yellow into the centers, and then my mixture was hydrangea blue powder and water that was in there. Again, that kind of shows you about how much they will shrink. It's not super thick there. But anyway, just thought I would share. Have fun with this. There's so many possibilities.